The Austrian capital, Vienna, has retained its ranking as the world's most livable city. That's according to an annual report from The Economist, which scores 140 cities on a range of factors such as crime, transport, infrastructure, as well as political and economic.
In light of Vienna being voted the world's top city in quality for life for 2 years in a row, it is important to dissect and identify why and what components make it the global city that is so desirable to the global community. The current status of Vienna could not be explored without a brief understanding of Vienna and Austria's history.
Despite most European countries obtaining nations through colonial enterprises over the past 5 centuries, Austria never established explicit control over a certain people or nation. Nevertheless, Austria helped to push ideologies and concepts which were founded in goals of achieving global power through religious expansion and resource exploitation.
Vienna has served as a center for many states, including the Holy Roman Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. After becoming the capital of the Austrian state, Vienna fell under the control of Hitler's expanding German territory. When Austria became a sovereign state in 1955, the city of Vienna followed in the country's mission to establish itself as a global player and a hub for economic prosperity and interconnectedness.
Vienna is the 7th largest city in the EU with about 1.9 million residents, with almost half of Vienna's residents originating from migrant backgrounds. Vienna is a service-driven region, which can be easily explained by its role in administration, research, and science, and an orientation towards knowledge-intensive business services.
Yet we must ask, why is Vienna important to study as a global city? Vienna has been home to a complex and complicated political scene, ranging from becoming a hub of far-right ideology to the home of a blossoming and progressive center for equality, human rights, and social change. Today, Vienna houses a major UNO city headquarters, reinstilling its position as a global city and international hub that contrasts preconceived notions of isolated statehood. Vienna's international character is further expanded by its recent rises in ethnic, racial, and religious diversity, caused by migration waves. Vienna upholds its reputation of being a significant node of culture, often being dubbed a museum city, through its preservation of historical monuments and artifacts throughout its transformation in the modern age.
An important policy shift that should be noted about Vienna is that its position on open borders for refugees has shifted as the issue has unfolded. Following the 2015 refugee crisis and the growing presence of right-wing groups, Vienna has closed its borders, and as a result, the Austrian state has led the EU's anti-migrant drive. Another point of notice about Vienna is its emphasis on massive infrastructure projects. According to local government reports, by 2020, over 1.3 billion euro will be invested in infrastructure projects to ensure key services like drinking water and energy provision keep pace with the growth of the rate of the city. Vienna is often featured within the global news cycle, particularly focused on its policies and attitudes towards the 2015 European refugee crisis, as well as its recognized status as a tourist city of high quality of life and its significance in the global arena.
Human rights issues of equality arise in Vienna as a direct result of the transition from open to closed migration policies authored in Vienna. Another topic of inequality in Vienna is in relation to the distribution of wealth. Austria is an incredibly wealthy country, and in Vienna, the top 20% of households hold 80% of the gross wealth in the entire city. The distribution of wealth paints a clear narrative of power dynamics between residents and also has an implication for everything from social service funding to property prices.
When talking about the urban profile of Vienna, it is impossible not to discuss the healthcare system that the Austrian state has set up. Austria has a universal healthcare system that in 2016 covered approximately 99.9% of the population, which also includes non-residents. However, despite a universal healthcare system, a higher quality of healthcare services can be purchased privately. As a result, a two-class system is created, forming a separation in the quality of healthcare. The issue of citizenship and state impacts the Austrian healthcare system, as services are dependent upon citizenship status within the EU.
Adding to Vienna's status as a hub of high-quality living, Vienna boasts an expansive and modern public transportation system composed of an underground subway, a streetcar system, and bus lines. The steady growth of Vienna's population has inspired expansion projects within the public transportation system to increase mobility and access to the multitude of locations within Vienna, while accommodating the urban sprawl that has occurred. It is important to note that expansion projects are largely focused on connecting the economic and corporate hubs of the city.
Austria's welcoming policies towards refugees in the 1990s during the Prague Spring and the Yugoslav War seemed to signify a light of hope for many vulnerable families escaping conflict in the Middle East. However, the 2015 European refugee crisis would seem to be a turning point towards an anti-immigration stance. Austria quickly halted the entrance of refugees, constructing walls and fences along borders, preventing unwanted entrances of individuals into Austrian territory. At the beginning of the crisis, Vienna stood as a city capable and willing to shelter refugees. However, it was not too long before the right-wing and anti-immigrant protests gained momentum and crowded the streets of Vienna, fueling the future strict closed border policy and adding to the hostility towards outsiders.
Here, it is important to outline the foundations of our research questions that will drive our final projects. Further research of Vienna will focus on the inequities of individuals migrating to Vienna as a part of the 2015 refugee crisis, particularly focusing on the process of obtaining asylum while also highlighting the disparities in rights and access to resources amongst migrant groups when compared to official citizens of Vienna.
Research questions about the transportation and healthcare in Vienna will mainly focus on questions about accessibility. What populations get to take advantage of these services and infrastructure projects? What explicit or hidden mechanisms prevent or allow people to use these services that the city has invested heavily in? The final research question is ultimately what international implications there are for the combination of the narrative of Vienna being a global city and all of the nuances of the urban space has with regards to infrastructure, foreign policy, and welfare.